Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us for how to make your AI implementation enjoyable and successful. On our webinar today, Fred and Shahn are going to provide expectations and timelines of the process of implementing EnsoSleep in your lab, including change management training, installation and scoping, quality assurance, AI scoring go live, and many more topics. All right, before we get going, I want to introduce our guides for today. We have Fred Turkington and Shahnawaz Khan. Fred is VP of Customer Success at EnsoData, where he leads the technical project planning, implementation, and customer support. After graduating with a BS in biochemistry, he launched his career in healthcare IT, hoping to bring the power and scale of software to the very personal and hands-on healthcare industry. Fred joined EnsoData on the promise of new horizons that artificial intelligence and machine learning can bring to healthcare, and is passionate about supporting sleep professionals in reaching and treating patients suffering from sleep disorders. Shahnawaz is experienced RPSGT, CCSH, and EnsoData's clinical informaticist. Shahn has a BA in sociology and began working in the field of sleep medicine while in college. 2014, he started working at Stanford Hospital, where he transitioned to also working as a research associate at Stanford. He has since then worked alongside the BRPT to help develop and write exam questions for the RPSGT exam, as well as spent time on the board of directors for the California Sleep Society. He eventually worked as a consultant for various companies such as Google, UC Berkeley, and UCSF. Shahn uses his background in research and skills in scoring sleep studies with multiple systems to support and help customers find success using EnsoSleep AI scoring. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Fred.
Thank you, Sandy. So today, Shahn and I will go through the journey of a customer who is starting their use of EnsoSleep scoring. So it starts with choosing to partner with EnsoData and buy the EnsoSleep software for use in your lab. Then we have the conversation to make sure that this transition and adoption is smooth and people anticipate and are excited for the change. We'll take care of some technical bits and make sure we know which studies, where they're scored, and at which labs we'll be using EnsoSleep scoring on. Get you your first chance to see an AI scored study and go live. Once we've gone live, we move into the onboarding phase. This is where the fun starts. This is where you're seeing AI scoring, and we'll take the next 4 to 6 weeks of onboarding to help make it comfortable for you to score behind the artificial intelligence algorithm, for us to learn more about the way you like to score, and to make sure that EnsoSleep works the way your lab needs it to. So we'll go in depth onto those different parts of the implementation. So the first piece of the implementation is called change management. So this is done by the director or manager of techs at your lab to help prepare your staff for this transition to using AI scoring. It's very common for sleep techs to be nervous about artificial intelligence. It's unknown, it's a little bit scary oftentimes. So we want to understand how your team is feeling about this transition to AI scoring. Are they nervous? Are they excited? It's very common that we'll have this meeting. It will start off with us talking to your techs about what EnsoSleep AI scoring is. They'll come in with lots of challenging questions for us. By the end of the meeting, they'll leave with a sense of confidence of, oh, I don't know what I was worried about. This is going to be great for our lab. After we've set this groundwork with you and your staff, we'll move into the more technical part of the implementation. After we've installed the software, we'll do something that we call quality assurance. This is your chance to see your first AI scored study, and for us to make sure that the integration between EnsoSleep software, which works in the background, and your sleep study software, where you'll actually be reviewing the AI scoring and generating your reports, make sure that integration is working. We'll collect your initial scoring preferences through a tool we call the pre-flight checklist, and we'll open several studies with you together to get your initial feedback on how the AI scoring is working. Finally comes our go live day. We'll set a date to flip the switch, and any studies that are recorded the night before in your lab or downloaded from your home sleep test units will get AI scored. As soon as that data is available, it'll take 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the study size, for EnsoSleep to score the study, and the results will be placed back onto your computer for you to open and review. This is where we want to make sure that the techs are excited, that the workflow is working for them, and make sure that everything is kicking off well for those first couple days of using AI scoring. Once we've gone live, though, that's where your techs really start getting involved with EnsoSleep. So I'll hand it over to Shahn to talk about the onboarding experience.
Thanks, Fred. Let's talk about our onboarding experience. We want to help you understand and have the best experience. How to use a software, where to click. We want you to feel comfortable. One of the most important elements of this is that you cannot experience the clinical benefits without first understanding the technical elements. I have a client that I'm working with in New Jersey who had a difficult time seeing the benefits in the scoring. They were scoring arousals in a higher sensitivity and were spending a significant time with the scoring. So the objective here began to build the trust between the RPSGT and the clinical informaticist and our team, which brings us to our next phase, phase 2, which is building trust. We want to be able to build your trust. Feedback is so important. This helps us build a relationship with the clients and also to create a better experience. Also, it's very nice to work with the people that you like. And here we're able to identify and put together a sequence of different settings to curate and make a proper scoring experience. We're able to understand and identify different trends that seem to happen and to continue to happen so that we're able to address them and help with your scoring experience. So the technologist that I was working with was able to provide me feedback by showing me different epics, showing me different studies during our weekly meetings, and to help understand what they were seeing. They were identifying arousals that we weren't seeing, and as such, they were spending a lot of time with those events. So I suggested with them that we do something called a scoring ride-along. And this consists of me sitting down with them for an hour or so to get to know them better, to understand that there's a specific scoring style so that we're able to kind of agree upon things and understand exactly where we're going with our scoring, and to help us with our scoring agreement, which brings us to the next phase, which is phase 3, our scoring agreement. We want to see improvement throughout your experience. We want to see the difference in your scoring from the first time you use the software to a couple of weeks after. If you aren't seeing changes, we want to know what they are and what we can do to help you achieve your goal. Our communication and feedback is so paramount to us helping you achieve your goals. So with the client that I was working with, we were able to speak a lot about what was going on during our weekly meetings. We were able to sit down during our scoring ride-along and learn from each other. And we were able to identify different things regarding our arousal. We were able to kind of come to a conclusion about different types of arousal. We actually were able to teach each other different things, as a lot of scoring technologists don't have that type of exposure. So in phase 3, we worked together with medical directors to see that a lot of time that was spent in the subjectivity of scoring that was not clinically relevant or was not changing a clinical diagnosis. We were able to identify these issues, and that allowed us to move forward to phase 4, which is giving more time. So with phase 4, we want to allow you to have more time. So during our conversations, we were able to see that some of the arousals, like I mentioned, were not clinically relevant. So we were able to see that in different studies, there were a lot more severe studies in which the events were a lot more cyclical and that it wasn't really changing the outcome. So the client was able to spend a little bit less time on those And then they were able to spend a lot more time on the studies that required that keen eye and that ability to see those specific events. And what that resulted in was that they were spending about 50% of their time that they were spending initially after using our software and after having seen those results from our conversations with one another. And these things, they don't happen immediately. So the onboarding experience is very, very significant, and it helps you to make sure to see that the time savings that you're getting are significant. And then once we're confident, we don't stop meeting weekly until you're happy. And once you're happy, we're able to move on to ongoing support success, which I'm going to hand off to Fred.
Thanks. So it does take that 4 to 6 weeks of onboarding for you to feel comfortable, for us to get to know your scoring style, and for you to start seeing that 50% of that time back to work on the other things that you want to accomplish in your lab. And that's what ongoing support and success are for, is to help you accomplish those other things that you want to do in your lab, the whole reason why you got EnsoSleep in the first place. So our support doesn't stop after onboarding. We'll switch from weekly to monthly interactions. That way we get the chance to stay in touch with you and your lab, help find solutions to other problems you might be having, and help connect you with other folks in the sleep community in your area, and around the country and the world. A couple pieces that we offer in ongoing support to help with this are quarterly business reviews, a chance for us to step back and see how your whole lab business is going and how EnsoSleep is able to help with that business. Shahn mentioned RPSGT ride-alongs. We love to do them during onboarding, but they're great to continue doing into the future to help make sure that we understand the way your techs like to score and that your techs can get the most benefit out of having the AI scoring there before they do their review. We also have the BFF program, and I will give a plug for next week's webinar where you can learn more about the BFF program. So that will be next week. I'll be one of the presenters along with Andrea, who's another RPSGT that works with us here at EnsoData. And with that, that's the presentation we wanted to cover today. A little background on implementation, on onboarding, and on ongoing support. And we'd love to entertain your questions now.
All right, I'm not going to turn my camera on because every time I touch my camera, it loses the screen share, and I don't want to have to go back to the beginning. So thank you, Fred and Shahn. We did have a couple of questions come in. The first one we actually got was asking about how soon we'd have the webinar ready, the recording ready, because there are some meetings going on in the next couple of days with decision makers, and this particular person wanted to review this material. So I'm going to share that answer that I sent to him with everybody. It typically takes us about 24 hours to get this. It has to be anybody who works in marketing knows you have to process it, you have to upload it. It takes a little bit of time, but we will get that out to you as soon as possible. The other thing that I wanted to mention is if there's anything that anybody needs help with, I know very often you guys are doing a fantastic job being champions for your own sleep center. So we are more than happy to help with that. We have on occasion had people from our team actually sit in on those meetings with you. So let us know if there's any more details or data, or even if you want somebody to join you for the meetings. The next question I got, Fred, if you want to take a stab at it, is who should participate in these check-in calls and the implementation?
For sure. So at the beginning of the implementation, it's very important to have your lab director, the person who ultimately is championing bringing on EnsoSleep, as well as the individual sleep techs who are responsible for scoring, who will be getting that benefit out of the AI scoring, but who also are probably pretty nervous about learning this new process in their lab. Having that director there to instill confidence in, we chose this program because we believe that it's the future of sleep scoring, and it's going to help you, the scoring technologist. That's really powerful right at the beginning of onboarding to help set the tone. Then for those weekly onboarding meetings, it should always be that sleep technologist, because we really need their feedback every week to adjust settings in EnsoSleep and to hear how their level of comfort is going with getting used to EnsoSleep.
Fantastic. Next question. I have never been asked this. Great question. For the ride-alongs, this particular sleep center scores on the fly. Do we offer ride-alongs at night? Oh, sorry, Shahn.
Yes, so unfortunately we don't offer ride-alongs at night. However, there are circumstances in which I understand that the scoring technologist might, have a nighttime schedule or something that might be a little bit more difficult. So what I usually do at times is we will organize something that works, and I'll transition to my old night shift ways and adjust it around based off of time difference and stuff. So I have done the occasional nighttime score along as well.
Perfect. Next question, which is also another great question. And this one I do hear all of the time because the AI does machine learning. But this question is, does the AI learn from us or our scores? So Fred, do you want to take a pass at that one?
Yeah, I'd love to. So the AI does learn, but probably not the way you're thinking of it. We're asked pretty often by folks if they need to make sure that only certain technologists at their lab are the ones that are doing the scoring, because they're worried that EnsoSleep may learn from technologists who themselves are still learning. So you don't have to worry. EnsoSleep learns in a much bigger pattern. It doesn't learn every day from every study. It's done in batches. Every 6 to 10 weeks, we look at the accumulated overscoring adjustments that you have made to EnsoSleep scoring. And then we run it through a very rigorous battery of tests to make sure that any changes that we would roll out in the AI algorithm are improving the performance on your studies. So it has a lot of human quality gate checks along the way to make sure that any changes we make to the AI scoring are always making it better.
Fantastic. You guys have great questions. We've only got 2 questions left. And I think it's really important because this is such an important decision. And I know the power of having webinars like this is you get to hear what other people are wondering too. And then sometimes you think, oh, I forgot to ask that. So if anybody has any more questions, go ahead and type them in. We did get a question about time, and I'm going to add a note to it because another question that I hear very often, I think correlates with it. So the question that came in is, you mentioned time savings as the last step of onboarding. Approximately when do sleep centers start to see time savings? And I'm going to add on to that because very often I think people will expect that the AI, at some point scores perfectly once that happens. So Fred, if you don't mind, I would love if you answer the question on in the past when you have seen people get to that time savings, and then just the concept of the ongoing partnership. And I know you mentioned it again, but the thought of the AI like really getting in a groove with your lab, and then the ongoing partnership to make sure that it continues to score the way you want and you continue to see those time savings.
Yeah. So we find, you maybe heard this as a theme in what I've been saying, is that upfront expectation setting can make all the difference in making sure that your onboarding goes successfully. So it is going to take 4 to 6 weeks before you start seeing those time savings. And for the first week, it might actually take you a little longer to score a study behind EnsoSleep. You're used to seeing a blank study, or maybe a study scored by somebody at night who you already know really well. And now you're having to score behind this total stranger, this AI scoring. And it can be a little uncomfortable. You might find yourself really scrutinizing or second guessing a particular epoch of staging. Be like, well, I could go either way on that. It might be 2, it might be 1. And you can justify it in your head a little bit, but you're comparing it to what Enso has marked. Whereas before, if you're scoring from blank, you just mark it whatever stage that you saw and move on, right? But it's that time taking that 4 to 6 weeks to put in those repetitions and get used to seeing many studies that are scored with EnsoSleep. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not a ton of time, right? It's no extra time than you would otherwise be spending scoring, but it's time that you're learning for every study that you go through. So 4 to 6 weeks. And then the second part of the question, I'm having trouble remembering. So would you ask it again, Cindy?
Yeah, I was just because I've seen people, once you get through the onboarding and they start saving time, I've had people say, oh, we don't really show up to the additional meetings later on because we don't need them. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity, since nobody else had asked the question, to address the need to continually meeting with your awesome team so that savings of time and the way that the AI scores for them really works. So I don't know if you have an opportunity to just comment on the ongoing connection and feedback, and just to make sure that the AI scores exactly as they're hoping.
Yeah, absolutely. So meeting with us once a month is really useful as a way for both of us to take a bit of a step back and think pretty deeply about how things are going with your use of the software. For us, that will typically look like looking at interscore reliability results of how Enso did versus what changes you're making to the studies. And for you, it may be a chance to reflect on what patterns that you've seen over the past month, and where you've noticed EnsoSleep getting better, for example, or where it still needs improvement.
Perfect. Yes, I always laugh when people are like, oh, it's working so well, I forget about my meetings, which is a good thing, but it's very important to continue to do them. All right, I have one last question. I'm saving this one for you, Shahn. I will be the RPSGT to ask if I need to worry about AI replacing my scoring job. So Shahn, why don't you answer that one? I do hear that all of the time.
Thank you, Cindy. Yeah, so that's one of the questions that a lot of our clients often have. They ask us, is this going to replace me? I'm worried that this job's going to replace me. I don't want to be replaced. I want my job security. The AI is not ever going to replace the importance of what the RPSGT does and always will do. We simply are using this as a tool to assist you and to be able to do a lot of the things that you'd want to do. There's something that I've started saying a lot, and Fred definitely knows this term by now, but it's called brain drain. And I think that as a scoring technologist, I used to spend a lot of time, just kind of clicking through and clicking and clicking and clicking. And after about 10 or 12 studies, it really started to affect, how I was thinking. I started to get delirious and all sorts of things. I really used to out loud think like it would be so nice if a lot of these events were just marked already, so I can kind of go through the study in a way that seemed more efficient, and I can also maintain my lucidity at the same time. So it's essentially like a scoring buddy. It helps you do the things that you don't have to do or you don't have to spend time with, but you do need to look over it. We do want you to be able to have that final review, that final signature, to be able to look through the study. It also kind of helps you determine different things that you may not have otherwise been looking at. You'll be able to identify alpha wave intrusions more significantly. You'll be able to spend more time looking at seizure activity. You'll be able to identify EKG arrhythmias, things that you might be pressed for time for usually. So you are actually able to do a better job at what you were otherwise doing. And you also get to maintain that sense of like being able to breathe and also having that final stamp on things. And I can definitely attest to this as I've done some of the scoring and I've seen how I felt after, and I felt a lot better. So you are not going to be replaced. I know it's a big question, but we definitely need you.
That's awesome. And I really appreciate people asking that question. So thanks, guys. Fred and Shahn, I can't thank you enough for helping me today. One of the things that makes my team's job so easy on the sales front is knowing that we're handing over new customers to the customer success team here. You guys do a fantastic job making sure that everybody not only has success with EnsoSleep, but really feels welcome and supported. And I just can't say enough about the feedback that I get from our customers on the job you guys do. So thank you for taking time to do this today. Thank you to everybody for joining us. And hopefully we will be talking to you all in the near future. Have a good day.